Hey there, welcome back. I'm here to help you relax tonight. Before we slip into the shadows, like and subscribe to uncover more stories like this. Let me know in the comments where are you listening from and what time is it there. It really brings our community together. Now, dim the lights for that cozy vibe and stick around till the end. Let's dive into the unknown. I pulled into the Riverside Distribution Center parking lot at 5:45 p.m., 15 minutes before my shift started. The massive warehouse loomed against the darkening sky, its corrugated metal walls stretching the length of 3 football fields. A silver Honda Civic was parked near the employee entrance, the engine still ticking as it cooled. The new trainee had arrived early. That was a good sign, or at least I hoped it was. My brother Danny's rehab center cost $3,200 a month, and insurance covered exactly none of it. The Riverside Depot paid inventory coordinators $28 an hour base rate, with time and a half after 8 hours and double time on Sundays. Most importantly, they offered unlimited overtime to anyone willing to work the swing and graveyard shifts. I'd been pulling 60-hour weeks for the past 5 months, and Danny had been clean for 4. The math worked as long as I kept showing up. A young woman got out of the Honda, pulling a backpack over one shoulder. She looked mid-20s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and safety boots that looked brand new. Her eyes found me immediately as I approached. "Emma Mitchell," she said, extending her hand. "You must be Marcus." I shook her hand briefly. "Marcus Taylor. Come on, let's get you checked in before the shift supervisor starts breathing down our necks." The employee entrance led into a small office area where Janet Holloway sat behind a battered metal desk. Janet had worked at Riverside for 23 years and had the kind of weathered face that came from seeing too many things she couldn't explain. She looked up as we entered, her expression neutral. "New trainee," I said. "Emma Mitchell." Janet pulled out a clipboard and had Emma sign several forms. Standard employment paperwork mostly, but the last page caught Emma's attention. "This says, I acknowledge receipt of mandatory operational procedures and agree to follow them without deviation," Emma read aloud. "That's kind of vague." "You'll learn the procedures during training," Janet said flatly. "Sign if you want the job." Emma hesitated, then signed. Janet stamped the paperwork and handed Emma a laminated badge. "Marcus will show you around. Follow his instructions exactly. Don't improvise." As we left the office, Emma glanced back at Janet. "She seems intense." "She's seen people who didn't follow procedures," I said simply. "It changes your perspective." The warehouse floor was a maze of towering metal shelving units that stretched 40 feet to the ceiling. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows between the aisles. Forklifts sat parked in designated zones, their orange paint chipped and faded. The air smelled like cardboard, diesel fuel, and something else I could never quite identify. Something organic and faintly sweet that seemed to come from the darkest corners where the lights didn't quite reach. "This place is huge," Emma said, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. 12 acres under one roof, I confirmed. "We handle inventory for 17 major retailers. Everything from electronics to furniture to industrial equipment. If it ships through the Pacific Northwest, it probably passes through here." I led her to the forklift training area, a marked section of floor near the loading docks. "You said on your application you have forklift certification?" "Yeah, I worked at a lumber yard for 2 years," Emma replied. "I'm comfortable with the basics." "Good, but there are specific procedures here that aren't standard. Before we go over the equipment, we need to cover the mandatory rules." Emma pulled out a small notebook from her backpack. "Should I write these down?" "Absolutely," I said. "Rule number 1, And this is the most important one. Pallets must always be stacked in even numbers. Never leave a single pallet, 3 pallets, 5 pallets, or any odd number in a stack. Always even. 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. Emma wrote this down, frowning slightly. Why? I mean, I've stacked pallets plenty of ways before. What difference does even versus odd make? I'd expected this question. Every new trainee asked it. The difference is that people who ignore this rule tend to have accidents. Serious accidents. Last year, a guy named Trevor decided the even number thing was superstitious nonsense. He left a stack of 3 pallets in AL-47 overnight. His forklift was found the next morning with the engine still running. Trevor was never found. Emma's pen paused on the paper. What do you mean, never found? I mean exactly that. The police searched the entire facility. His car was still in the parking lot. His phone and wallet were in his locker. But Trevor was gone, just gone. That's, Emma started, then seemed to reconsider what she was about to say. That's unsettling. It's why we follow the procedures, I said firmly. Rule number 2. After sunset, never make eye contact with any shadow that's longer than 10 feet. If you see a shadow that long, especially one that doesn't match any visible object or person, look away immediately. Emma stopped writing and looked up at me. Shadows? Marcus, this is sounding less like workplace safety and more like a ghost story. I'm not asking you to believe in ghosts, I replied. I'm asking you to follow procedures that keep people alive. You can decide what you believe on your own time. She studied my face for a moment, clearly trying to determine if I was messing with her. Whatever she saw there must have convinced her I was serious, because she returned to her notebook. Okay, don't look at long shadows after dark. Got it. Rule 3, I continued. If your forklift stalls for no apparent reason, engine just dies, controls stop responding, immediately exit the vehicle and walk, don't run, to the nearest exit. Don't try to restart it, don't investigate, just leave the area and report it to me or one of the shift supervisors. Why would a forklift just stall like that? Emma asked. I don't know the technical explanation, I admitted. But when it happens, bad things follow if you stick around. Trust me on this one. I gave her time to write, then moved on. Rule 4. If you hear whispers coming from between stacked inventory, ignore them completely. Don't try to locate the source. Don't respond. Just continue with your work as if you heard nothing. Whispers, Emma repeated, her tone flat. You're telling me this warehouse whispers. I'm telling you that sometimes people hear things that sound like whispers, I corrected. The smart ones don't investigate. Emma sighed but wrote it down. What else? Rule 5. During the 2 a.m. inventory check, if you count a discrepancy, if the numbers don't match what's in the system, you report it immediately. You don't try to find the missing items yourself. You don't adjust the count to make it match. You report the exact discrepancy to me, and I handle it. That one actually sounds reasonable, Emma said. Rule 6, I continued. If you see anyone wearing a blue maintenance uniform after 8 US p.m., stay away from them. Our maintenance crew works day shift only. If you see someone in a blue uniform during our shift, they're not supposed to be here. Emma looked up sharply. You're saying there might be intruders? I'm saying, if you see someone in a blue maintenance uniform after hours, you tell me immediately, and you don't approach them, I said. And Rule 7, never, under any circumstances, open a pallet that's wrapped in red shrink wrap. If you encounter red-wrapped pallets, leave them alone and mark their location on the tracking sheet. Special handling team deals with those during day shift. Emma finished writing and looked at her notes. These are really specific. It's like you guys have a manual for dealing with paranormal activity." "We have procedures," I said neutrally. "Whether they're dealing with paranormal activity or just preventing industrial accidents is above my pay grade. What matters is that people who follow the rules go home safely at the end of their shifts." "And people who don't?" she asked. I thought about Trevor, about Maria Walsh, who'd made eye contact with a shadow and walked into a wall so hard it fractured her skull, about James Parker, who'd opened a red-wrapped pallet and hadn't spoken a coherent word since. People who don't follow procedures tend not to last long here. Emma closed her notebook and tucked it into her pocket. "Okay, I'll follow your rules. I need this job." "Why?" I asked. It wasn't really my business, but understanding someone's motivation helped predict how seriously they'd take the training. "Student loans," she said. "I graduated with a biology degree and $80,000 in debt. The lab jobs I wanted didn't pan out, and the rent in this city is insane. I saw your overtime rates and did the math. 6 months of this and I can actually make a dent in what I owe." I nodded. We all had our reasons. Mine was Danny's rehab. Emma's was student debt. The warehouse didn't care why we were here, only that we followed the procedures. "All right, let's start with basic forklift operations," I said, leading her to the nearest vehicle. "You said you have experience, so this should be review." The next 2 hours passed without incident. Emma demonstrated solid forklift skills, maneuvering smoothly through the aisles and handling loads with practiced ease. I showed her the inventory tracking system, the scanning procedures, and the optimal routes through the warehouse. She asked good questions and took notes diligently. Around 8:30 p.m., the sun had fully set, and the warehouse took on its night character. The fluorescent lights seemed harsher, the shadows between shelving units deeper. The daytime staff had all departed, leaving just the swing shift crew. Me, Emma, 3 other inventory coordinators, and the shift supervisor, Thomas Anderson. "Time for your first real task," I told Emma. "We need to relocate a shipment of office chairs from receiving to aisle 23. They came in this afternoon and day shift didn't have time to process them." We headed to the receiving area, where 16 pallets of boxed office chairs sat waiting. Each pallet was wrapped in clear shrink wrap, the boxes visible beneath. "Standard procedure," I said. "We'll move these 2 at a time. Stack them even, secure them properly, transport them to the designated aisle." Emma nodded and climbed onto a forklift. I took another machine, and we began the process. The work was methodical and straightforward. Lift, secure, transport, stack. We developed a rhythm, moving through the warehouse in tandem. On our 4th trip, as we navigated through aisle 19, Emma suddenly stopped her forklift. I pulled up beside her. "Problem?" I asked. She pointed toward the shadows between 2 towering shelving units. "I thought I saw something move over there." I followed her gaze. The area she indicated was poorly lit, one of those dead zones where the overhead fluorescence didn't quite reach. The shadow there seemed darker than it should be, almost solid in its blackness. "Keep moving," I said quietly. "Don't stare at it." "But there's definitely something," Emma started. "Rule 2, I reminded her. "Don't make eye contact with shadows longer than 10 feet after sunset. That shadow there? It's easily 15 feet long. Look away and keep driving." Emma hesitated, her curiosity clearly warring with caution. Then she tore her gaze away and restarted her forklift. We continued to aisle 23 without further incident, but I noticed her glancing back over her shoulder several times. After we'd stacked the chairs properly, 8 pallets in aisle 23, 4 each in 2 stacks, perfectly even, we returned to receiving for the remaining pallets. "What was that thing?" Emma asked as we drove. "In the aisle, that shadow." I don't know, I answered honestly, and I don't want to know. The procedures exist so we don't have to find out. But doesn't that bother you? She pressed. Not knowing what you're avoiding? I thought about how to explain it. 6 months ago, when I started here, it bothered me. I wanted explanations. I wanted things to make logical sense. But then I realized something. My brother needs me alive and employed more than I need to satisfy my curiosity. The paycheck clears every 2 weeks whether I understand the rules or not. Emma was quiet for a moment. Your brother? Danny, he's in rehab, opioids. Started with a prescription after a car accident, escalated from there. The good rehab centers, the ones that actually help, they're expensive. This job pays for that. So I follow the rules, collect my overtime, and Danny gets to stay clean. I'm sorry, Emma said softly. That must be really hard. I shrugged. Everyone here has something they're working toward. That's mine. What matters is we both go home safe at the end of the shift. We collected the remaining 8 pallets and completed the relocation job. By 10:45 p.m., all 16 pallets of office chairs were properly stored, perfectly stacked in even numbers. Good work, I told Emma. Let's take a 15-minute break, then I'll show you the inventory scanning system. The break room was a small space with vending machines, a microwave, and several tables. 2 other inventory coordinators sat at one table, Tim Cooper and Jennifer Johnson. They looked up as we entered. Training a new one? Tim asked, nodding at Emma. First night, I confirmed. Emma, this is Tim and Jennifer. They work the western section of the warehouse. Welcome to the madhouse, Jennifer said with a slight smile. Marcus, give you the rules speech yet? Yeah, Emma said, pulling a bottled water from the vending machine. It was comprehensive. Tim chuckled. Let me guess, you think he's either messing with you or crazy. I'm withholding judgment, Emma said diplomatically. Smart, Jennifer said. Give it a week. You'll see enough to make up your mind. See enough of what? Emma asked. Tim and Jennifer exchanged a look. Things that don't have good explanations, Tim finally said. Things the rules help you avoid. Before Emma could press further, the break room door opened and a tall man in dark clothes entered. He moved silently, his face partially obscured by the hood of his jacket. Without speaking, he walked to the coffee maker and poured himself a cup. I noticed Emma watching him with curiosity. That's Victor, I said quietly. He works here sometimes, maintenance mostly. Victor turned slightly at the mention of his name, nodded once in acknowledgement, then left the break room as silently as he'd entered. He doesn't say much, Jennifer noted. Does he work for the company? Emma asked. Sort of, I said. He's here when we need him. That's all you need to know. Emma frowned, but didn't pursue the question. After our break, I walked her through the inventory scanning protocols. Each pallet and each individual item above a certain value threshold needed to be scanned and logged in the tracking system. The process was tedious but necessary for maintaining accurate counts. Around midnight, we were working in aisle 31, scanning a shipment of industrial printers, when Emma's scanner beeped an error. What's wrong? I asked. The system says there should be 12 units here, but I'm only counting 11, she said, frowning at her handheld device. I checked my own scanner. The inventory database definitely listed 12 units. Keep looking, I said. Maybe one got separated from the others. We searched the immediate area but found no 12th printer. Emma looked frustrated. Should I adjust the count to match what's actually here? No, I said firmly. Rule 5. You don't adjust discrepancies yourself. You report them, We'll note this during the 2 a.m. inventory check and let the day shift investigate." "But it's just one printer," Emma protested. "These things happen, miscounts, shipping errors. Why make a big deal out of it?" "Because inventory discrepancies often mean something else is wrong," I explained. "Last month, Tim found a discrepancy in electronics. Turned out a whole pallet had been moved from its proper location. If he'd just adjusted the count, we never would have found it." "Found it where?" Emma asked. "Aisle 66, I said, "which shouldn't exist." Emma stared at me. "What do you mean, shouldn't exist?" "The warehouse officially has 65 numbered aisles," I said. "But sometimes, usually after midnight, an additional aisle appears between aisles 47 and 48. It's numbered 66. Items that go missing often end up there." "That's impossible," Emma said flatly. "Probably," I agreed. "But it happens anyway. The procedures account for it." Emma opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. She made a note in her scanner about the discrepancy, and we continued our work. At 1:45 a.m., we returned to the break room for another quick break before the mandatory 2 a.m. inventory check. I was pouring coffee when Emma approached me, her expression troubled. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Sure. This place, these rules, the weird things you keep hinting at. Is it actually dangerous?" she asked. "Like, should I be worried about my safety?" I considered how to answer that. "If you follow the procedures, you'll be fine. The rules exist because people figured out what works and what doesn't. As long as you don't deviate from them, you're as safe as anywhere else." "But people have disappeared," she pointed out. "You said that guy Trevor vanished." "Trevor ignored the rules," I said. "He thought he knew better. That's what got him into trouble." Emma wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I just want to make sure I'm not putting myself in actual danger for a paycheck." "You're not," I assured her. "At least, no more danger than any industrial job. Forklifts are heavy machinery. The shelving units are massive. There are real, physical hazards here that have nothing to do with shadows or whispers. The mandatory procedures help protect against all of it." She nodded slowly, seeming somewhat reassured. "Okay, I can work with that." At precisely 2 a.m., all inventory coordinators converged on the central computer station for the mandatory inventory check. This was a formal procedure that happened every night at the same time. Each coordinator reported discrepancies, unusual findings, or anything out of the ordinary from their assigned sections. Thomas Anderson, the shift supervisor, stood at the computer terminal. He was a thin man in his 50s with graying hair and a perpetually tired expression. "Report," he said simply. Tim went first. "Western section clear, all counts match, no issues." Jennifer was next. "Northern section, mostly clear. Found 3 pallets wrapped in red in aisle 12, marked their locations." Thomas made a note. "Good. Day crew will handle those. Marcus?" "Eastern section has a discrepancy," I reported. "Aisle 31, industrial printers. System shows 12 units. Physical count shows 11. Also, I'm training Emma Mitchell tonight. First shift." Thomas looked at Emma. "How's the training going?" "She's a quick learner," I said. "Solid forklift skills. Following procedures." "Good," Thomas said. "Continue the training. As for the printer discrepancy, I'll check the system logs and send a recovery team if needed." The other coordinators gave their reports, and Thomas logged everything methodically. The whole process took about 15 minutes. As we dispersed back to our sections, Emma leaned close to me. "What's a recovery team?" she whispered. "Exactly what it sounds like," I said. "If items get moved to places they shouldn't be, the recovery team retrieves them. Places like AL 66? Sometimes. We returned to our work, moving through the warehouse with practiced efficiency. Around 3:15 a.m., we were relocating a shipment of ergonomic desks when Emma's forklift suddenly died. The engine cut out mid-transport, the lights on the control panel going dark. I immediately stopped my own forklift and climbed down. "Emma, step away from the vehicle." She looked at me in confusion. "What?" "It just stalled." "Probably a fuel issue or something. I can restart it." "Rule 3, I said urgently. "When a forklift stalls for no apparent reason, you exit immediately and leave the area. Get down from there now." "Marcus, this is ridiculous. It's just a mechanical failure." A soft sound interrupted her. Whispers. Coming from somewhere nearby, maybe from between the stacked desks we were transporting, maybe from the shadows between shelving units. The whispers were too quiet to make out individual words, but they had a rhythmic quality, like chanting. Emma heard them too. I saw her eyes widen. "What is that?" "Get down from the forklift and walk with me to the nearest exit. Don't run. Just walk calmly." This time, she didn't argue. She climbed down from the stalled forklift and joined me on the ground. The whispers grew slightly louder, and I could feel a change in the air pressure like before a thunderstorm. "Walk," I said quietly. "Don't look back." We walked at a steady pace toward the loading dock exit, maybe 40 yards away. Behind us, the whispers intensified, and I heard metal creaking, the sound of heavy shelving units shifting. Emma's breathing quickened, but she maintained her pace. We reached the exit and stepped through into the cool night air. Only then did I allow myself to look back. Through the open doorway, I could see the stalled forklift sitting exactly where we'd left it. The shadows around it seemed darker, denser than they should be. The whispers had stopped. "What just happened?" Emma asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Your forklift stalled," I said. "We followed procedure. But those sounds, those whispers, Rule 4, I reminded her. If you hear whispers from between inventory, ignore them. Don't investigate. Don't respond." Emma ran a hand through her hair. "Marcus, I need you to level with me. What is going on in this warehouse?" I met her eyes. "I don't have all the answers, Emma. I'm not sure anyone does. But I know the procedures work. I know people who follow them survive, and people who don't face consequences. That's all I can tell you." A figure approached from the darkness of the parking lot. Victor emerged into the light spilling from the warehouse entrance. He nodded to us, then walked past, heading straight for the stalled forklift. "What's he going to do?" Emma asked. "Fix whatever needs fixing," I said. "Victor handles problems." We watched as Victor reached the forklift. He placed one hand on its frame, and the shadows around it seemed to recede, like darkness retreating from light. After a moment, he climbed into the driver's seat, and the engine started immediately. The control panel lights flickered back on. Victor drove the forklift to its parking zone, secured it, then walked back toward the entrance where we stood. As he passed, he spoke for the first time I'd ever heard. Stack was uneven. His voice was deep and quiet. 3 pallets. Fixed it. He disappeared back into the darkness before either of us could respond. Emma looked at me. The desks we were moving. How many pallets were there? I closed my eyes, mentally reviewing the job. 3. We were supposed to pick up 1 more to make it 4 before transporting them. I must have gotten distracted and told you to go ahead. And the odd number caused the forklift to stall? Apparently. Emma was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. "I'm starting to understand why the rules are mandatory." "Good," I said. "That understanding will keep you alive." We returned to the warehouse and completed our shift without further incident. By 6 a.m., when the day crew started arriving, I was exhausted but satisfied. Emma had handled her first night well, better than many trainees. More importantly, she was beginning to take the procedures seriously. "Same time tomorrow?" she asked as we walked to our cars in the early morning light. "Actually, I'm off tomorrow," I said. "I need to visit my brother, but you'll be working with Jennifer. She'll continue your training." Emma nodded. "Marcus, thank you for being patient with me, for keeping me safe." "That's the job," I said simply. "See you day after tomorrow." I drove home as the sun rose, thinking about Danny and how much longer I'd need to keep working nights to pay for his treatment. The answer was at least another 7 months, probably longer. 7 more months of shadows and whispers and procedures that defied rational explanation. 7 more months of collecting my overtime pay and making sure my brother had the chance to build a better life. It was worth it. It had to be. When I returned to work 2 nights later, Jennifer met me in the break room. Her expression was serious. "We need to talk about Emma," she said. My stomach tightened. "What happened?" "Last night she was working aisle 47. Said she saw something between the shelving units, a figure wearing a blue maintenance uniform." "Rule 6, I said. "Blue uniforms after hours. What did she do?" "She followed procedure," Jennifer assured me. "Came and found me immediately. We went back together, but the figure was gone. I documented it in the incident log." "How did Emma handle it?" Jennifer smiled slightly. "Better than I expected. She was scared, obviously, but she didn't panic. Stuck to the procedures. I think she's going to work out." I felt relieved. "Where is she now?" "Northern section, running inventory scans. She asked if you could check in with her when you got here." I found Emma in aisle 18, methodically scanning boxes of LED light fixtures. She looked up as I approached, and I noticed dark circles under her eyes. "Rough night?" I asked. She set down her scanner. "Jennifer probably told you about the person in the blue uniform." "Yeah. Marcus, I saw his face," Emma said quietly. "Or where his face should have been. It was just empty, like someone had erased it." I nodded. "That's why we don't approach them. You did the right thing by following procedure." "Is it always going to be like this?" she asked. "Seeing things that shouldn't exist? Following rules I don't understand?" "Probably," I admitted. "The warehouse doesn't change. We just get better at dealing with it." Emma picked up her scanner again. "Well, I still need the paycheck, and honestly, as terrifying as this is, there's something fascinating about it too. The scientist in me wants to understand what's happening here. Just don't let curiosity override caution," I warned. "That's what got Trevor in trouble." "I won't," she promised. "The rules keep us safe." "I get that now." Over the following weeks, Emma proved herself to be an exceptional inventory coordinator. She followed procedures meticulously, never deviating from the mandatory rules. She also started keeping detailed notes about the warehouse's peculiarities, not to share or investigate, but simply to track patterns and ensure she was prepared. One night in her 3rd week, we were working together in the southern section when we encountered something new. Between aisles 47 and 48, where aisle 66 sometimes appeared, we found a space that shouldn't exist. The aisle was there, clearly numbered 66, stretching back into darkness that seemed absolute. "That's it," Emma whispered. "That's the impossible aisle you mentioned." I nodded, keeping my voice low. "The missing printer from your first night is probably down there." Shelving units lined aisle 66, stocked with pallets and boxes. but the inventory didn't look like anything we normally handled. The boxes were unusual shapes, and some of the wrapped pallets seemed to move slightly, as if breathing. "Should we report this?" Emma asked. "It's already documented," I said. "Thomas knows it appears. The recovery team handles anything that needs to be retrieved from here." "What's in those boxes?" Emma asked, staring down the aisle. "I don't know, and neither of us is going to find out," I said firmly. "Come on, we have work to finish in our assigned section." We turned away from aisle 66 and returned to our normal duties. When I glanced back 30 minutes later, the aisle had vanished, leaving just the expected gap between aisles 47 and 48. Around 2:30 a.m., during our break, Tim joined us in the break room. He looked shaken. "What happened?" I asked. "Found a pallet wrapped in red," he said. "In aisle 34. Marked it per procedure, but as I was walking away I heard something from inside, like scratching." "Did you open it?" Emma asked sharply. "Hell no," Tim said. "I know what happened to James. I'm not touching red-wrapped pallets, but the sounds, they followed me for like 10 minutes. Every time I stopped moving, I'd hear that scratching." "Did you tell Thomas?" I asked. "Yeah, he's sending Victor to deal with it." As if summoned by the mention of his name, Victor entered the break room. He poured his usual cup of black coffee, then turned to Tim. "Aisle 34? Tim nodded. "Yeah, third bay, middle shelf." Victor left without another word. We sat in silence for a moment. "What's in the red-wrapped pallets?" Emma asked. "No one knows for sure," Tim said. "James opened one a couple months before you started. Thomas found him sitting on the floor next to it, eyes wide open, not blinking. He's in a psychiatric facility now, hasn't spoken a word since." Emma absorbed this information. "And Victor just handles these things?" "Victor does what needs doing," I said. "We don't ask questions." "Is he human?" Emma asked bluntly. Tim and I exchanged a look. "Probably not entirely," Tim admitted. "But he's on our side. Whatever he is, he keeps us safe." Emma nodded slowly. "Okay, I can accept that." The rest of the shift passed without major incidents. Around 5:30 a.m., as we were preparing to wrap up, Thomas called all coordinators to the central station. "Listen up," he said. "Management is implementing a new procedure starting Monday. We're extending shifts from 8 hours to 10 hours during peak season. That means more overtime pay, but also longer exposure to conditions." "How long is peak season?" Jennifer asked. 3 months, Thomas said. "November through January. It's voluntary, but they're offering an additional $5 per hour bonus on top of regular overtime." I did the mental math. 10-hour shifts at my current rate plus overtime plus the bonus would significantly accelerate my savings. I could potentially cut months off Danny's treatment timeline. "I'm in," I said. "Me too," Emma added. Tim and Jennifer also volunteered. Thomas nodded approvingly. "Good. I'll submit your names. Remember, longer shifts mean more time exposed to the warehouse's particularities. Stay sharp, follow procedures, watch out for each other." As we headed out to our cars, Emma walked beside me. 3 months of 10-hour shifts, she said. "That's intense." "But it's good money," I pointed out. "You could make serious progress on those student loans." "True," she agreed. "And honestly, I'm getting used to the weirdness. The procedures make sense now. They're like safety equipment, except instead of protecting against falls or machinery, they protect against whatever this place is." "Exactly," I said. "You're getting it." The extended shifts started the following Monday. 10 hours felt significantly longer than 8, especially after midnight when exhaustion started setting in. But the additional pay appeared in my next paycheck, and I calculated I could pay for Danny's treatment through completion if I maintained the schedule. During the third week of extended shifts, something unusual happened. Around 3 a.m., while Emma and I were relocating a shipment of commercial refrigerators, we encountered a section of warehouse we'd never accessed before. It was designated as Section Z on our warehouse maps, but the area had always been marked as off-limits to inventory coordinators. Tonight, however, the door to Section Z stood open. Warm, light spilled from inside, distinctly different from the harsh fluorescence throughout the rest of the building. "Should that be open?" Emma asked. "No," I said. "Section Z is maintenance only. We should report this to Thomas." But before we could leave, Victor emerged from Section Z. He saw us and paused. "Wait," he said, his deep voice carrying clearly. "You should see this." Emma and I exchanged uncertain looks. Victor had never invited anyone to do anything before. He mostly operated in silence, handling problems and disappearing. "Is it safe?" I asked. "For those who follow procedures, yes," Victor replied. "Come." We followed him through the door into Section Z. The space beyond was nothing like the rest of the warehouse. Instead of metal shelving and concrete floors, we found ourselves in a large chamber, with smooth walls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. At the center stood something that looked like a massive pillar of crystalline material, pulsing with faint blue light. "What is this place?" Emma whispered. "The source," Victor said simply. "The reason for all procedures." I stared at the pillar. "I don't understand." "This facility was built around a weak point," Victor explained. "A place where barriers between spaces are thin. The warehouse operations, the inventory, the procedures, all exist to maintain stability. Even numbers, specific timing, careful protocols, they create patterns that reinforce the boundaries." "Boundaries between what?" Emma asked. "Your world and others," Victor said. "The procedures you follow aren't random superstitions. They're carefully designed practices that maintain separation. When rules are broken, boundaries weaken, things slip through." I thought about the shadows, the whispers, AL-66, the figures in blue uniforms. Are those things from other worlds? "Echoes mostly," Victor said. "Fragments that leak through weak spots. But if enough procedures are violated, if enough boundaries break down, larger things could cross over." "And you stop that," Emma said. "You and the procedures." "I help," Victor acknowledged. "But the coordinators do most of the work by maintaining proper patterns. Every pallet stacked in even numbers, every rule followed precisely. It all contributes to keeping this place stable." "Why are you showing us this?" I asked. "Because you're both reliable," Victor said. "You follow procedures without deviation. You deserve to understand what you're protecting." He led us back out of Section Z and closed the door behind us. "Continue as you have been. The patterns hold because of people like you." Victor walked away, disappearing into the warehouse shadows. Emma and I stood in silence for a moment. "We're not just inventory coordinators," Emma finally said. "We're guards, gatekeepers." "Yeah," I agreed. "I guess we are." The revelation changed nothing about our daily work, but somehow made it feel more significant. We continued following procedures exactly, but now we understood the weight of what we were doing. Every correctly stacked pallet, every properly executed inventory check, it all mattered. The extended shifts continued through November and into December. My paychecks grew substantially, and Danny's progress reports from rehab stayed positive. Emma paid down significant chunks of her student debt. The work was exhausting but rewarding in ways that transcended money. One night in mid-December, during the 2 a.m. inventory check, Jennifer reported something unusual. "Northern section has a problem," she said. Multiple pallets in aisle 29 were found in odd number stacks. Someone must have moved them. Thomas's expression darkened. "Show me." We all followed Jennifer to aisle 29. Sure enough, several stacks contained 3, 5, or 7 pallets instead of even numbers. The shadows around them seemed darker, more active. "This wasn't accidental," Thomas said grimly. "Someone did this deliberately." "Who?" Tim asked. "There's a new day shift coordinator," Thomas said. "Started 2 weeks ago. He was warned about procedures but apparently didn't take them seriously." As we stood there discussing the situation, the lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. "Back room," Thomas ordered immediately. "Everyone, 7 minutes starting now." We hurried to the nearest back room, a storage space for cleaning supplies. Thomas sealed the door behind us and set a timer on his phone. "What's happening?" Emma asked. "The odd-numbered stacks weakened the boundaries," Thomas explained. "Rule 6, 3 flickers means retreat and wait. Something's manifesting out there and we don't want to be present for it." Through the door, we could hear sounds. Heavy footsteps, dragging noises, whispers that rose and fell in volume. The temperature in our small room dropped noticeably. "Victor will handle it," Jennifer said quietly, though she sounded uncertain. The 7 minutes felt eternal. When Thomas's timer finally chimed, the sounds outside had stopped. We emerged cautiously to find aisle 29 exactly as we'd left it, except now all the pallets were stacked in proper even numbers. Victor stood at the end of the aisle. He nodded to Thomas. "Corrected. Boundary stable." "Thank you," Thomas said. "I'll speak with management about the day shift coordinator." "Already handled," Victor said. "He won't return." We didn't ask what that meant. We simply returned to our work, grateful the crisis had been averted. January arrived, marking the end of the extended shift period. We returned to regular 8-hour nights, and while the reduced overtime hurt my paycheck, I'd saved enough to ensure Danny's treatment would continue through completion. He was scheduled for discharge in March, and his counselors were optimistic about his long-term recovery. Emma had similarly made huge progress on her debt. She'd also become one of the most reliable coordinators at the facility, her scientific mind adapting well to the warehouse's peculiarities. One night in late January, Thomas pulled me aside after the shift. "Management wants to promote you to assistant supervisor," he said. "Increase your base pay, reduced overtime, but more responsibility. You'd help train new coordinators and ensure procedures are followed." I considered the offer. "I need to think about it. Danny gets out of rehab in March. I was planning to transition back to day work, spend more time with him as he adjusts." Thomas nodded. "Understandable. Take a week to decide. The offer stands." That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot as dawn broke, thinking about the choice ahead. The warehouse had given me the means to save my brother, but it had also shown me things I could never unsee. Could I really just walk away? Or did I have a responsibility to stay and help maintain the boundaries? Emma knocked on my car window, startling me from my thoughts. I rolled it down. "You okay?" she asked. "Thomas offered me a promotion, assistant supervisor." "That's great, you should take it." "I was planning to leave after Danny gets out of rehab," I admitted. "Go back to normal hours, normal work." Emma leaned against my car. "Marcus, do you really think there's going back to normal after what we've seen here? After understanding what we're actually doing?" "Probably not," I conceded. "Then stay," she said simply. "Help train the next batch of coordinators. Make sure they understand the procedures. Keep them safe. The work matters." I thought about Trevor, about all the people who'd disappeared or been hurt because they didn't follow rules. I thought about the crystalline pillar in Section Z and the boundaries that needed maintaining. "You're right," I said. "Okay, I'll take the promotion." Emma smiled. "Good, because honestly, I'm planning to stay too. Maybe I'll never work in a traditional lab, but this place, it's the most fascinating research environment I could imagine." "Just don't let your scientific curiosity override safety," I warned. "Never," she promised. "The procedures keep us alive." I learned that lesson well. 3 weeks later, I began training a new coordinator named David Miller. He was young, eager, and unfortunately skeptical about the mandatory procedures. As I walked him through the rules, explaining about even-numbered stacks and avoiding shadows and the importance of following every protocol exactly, I saw the same doubt in his eyes that I'd seen in Mark's at the convenience store, in Trevor's face before he vanished. "These sound kind of superstitious," David said, trying to be polite but clearly unconvinced. "They're survival requirements," I said firmly, "and breaking them has consequences." I told him about Trevor, about the day shift coordinator who deliberately stacked pallets in odd numbers, about James and the red-wrapped pallet. David listened, but I could tell he wasn't fully buying it. "Come on," I said, leading him toward Section Z. "There's something you need to see." With Victor's permission, I showed David the crystalline pillar, explained about the boundaries and the weak points, and what would happen if too many procedures were violated. His skepticism wavered as he stood in that impossible room, seeing clear evidence that the warehouse was not a normal facility. "This is real," he whispered. "All of it." "Yes," I confirmed. "And the procedures are the only thing standing between this staying contained and something much worse happening. So when I tell you to stack pallets in even numbers, it's not superstition, it's protocol." David nodded, his face pale but determined. "I understand. I'll follow every rule exactly." "Good," I said. "Let's get back to work." Over the following weeks, I trained David thoroughly, watching to ensure he internalized the procedures. Emma often joined us, offering her own insights and experiences. Together, we formed an effective training team. In March, Danny completed his rehab program. I took a week off to help him settle into his new apartment and connect with outpatient support services. He looked healthier than he had in years, clear-eyed and focused. "Thank you," he said as we sat in his new living room, furnished with items I'd picked up from thrift stores. "For everything you did to make this possible. I know the warehouse job wasn't easy." "It was worth it," I said honestly. "And it's not just a job anymore, it's important work." Danny studied my face. "You're not going to quit, are you?" "No," I admitted. "I'm staying. They need people who understand the procedures, who can train others." He didn't fully understand what I meant, and I couldn't explain it in detail, but he accepted it. "Just stay safe, okay?" "Always," I promised. "That's what the procedures are for." When I returned to work, Thomas met me at the employee entrance. "Welcome back, Assistant Supervisor Taylor," he said with a slight smile. "We've got 2 new trainees starting tonight. Think you're ready?" I looked at the warehouse looming behind him, its massive structure containing impossible aisles and shadows that moved on their own, and boundaries that needed constant maintenance. I thought about all the people who worked here, following procedures they might never fully understand, keeping reality stable through their careful adherence to rules. "Yeah," I said, "I'm ready." The 2 new trainees were waiting in Janet's office. A man in his 40s named Robert Bennett and a young woman named Maya Stevens. Both looked nervous but determined. Both needed jobs badly enough to work the swing shift at a remote distribution center. "Welcome to Riverside Distribution Center," I said, shaking their hands. I'm Marcus Taylor, Assistant Supervisor. Before we begin your training, there are some mandatory procedures you need to understand. I need you to listen carefully and take notes." Robert pulled out a phone to record. Maya had a notebook ready. "Rule number 1, I began. Pallets must always be stacked in even numbers." As I walked them through the procedures, I saw the familiar skepticism in their eyes. They'd learn, just as I had, just as Emma and David had. Some would learn quickly, accepting the rules through trust. Others would need to see something impossible before they truly believed. Either way, my job was to ensure they understood before something went wrong. After covering the basic rules, I led them onto the warehouse floor. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting their harsh glow across endless aisles of inventory. In the distance, I could see Emma operating a forklift with practiced precision, David working nearby. Victor was somewhere in the shadows, maintaining boundaries we couldn't see. This facility handles inventory for 17 major retailers, I explained to Robert and Maya. If it ships through the Pacific Northwest, it probably passes through here. The work is straightforward. Receive inventory, process it, store it, retrieve it for shipment. But the procedures are mandatory, no exceptions, no improvisation. "Why so strict?" Robert asked. "Because people who don't follow procedures have accidents," I said simply. "Serious accidents. The rules exist to keep you safe." Maya glanced around the warehouse, her eyes lingering on the darker corners. "This place feels strange," she said quietly, "like there's something watching." "Trust your instincts," I told her, "but channel them into following procedures. If something feels wrong, refer to the rules. They'll tell you what to do." We spent the next several hours on basic training: forklift operation, inventory scanning, stacking procedures. Both trainees showed competence with the equipment, which was a good sign. Around 9:30 p.m., we took our first break. In the break room, Emma and David joined us. I introduced everyone, and Emma immediately began sharing her own experiences. "The procedures seemed bizarre to me at first," she told Robert and Maya. "I have a science background. I'm trained to question things that don't make logical sense. But this place operates on different logic. Once you accept that and commit to following the rules, everything becomes manageable." "What kind of things have you seen here?" Maya asked. Emma and I exchanged a glance. "Shadows that move independently," Emma said. "Aisles that appear and disappear, sounds that shouldn't exist. But as long as you follow procedures, you're protected." Robert looked skeptical but didn't argue. Maya seemed to take it more seriously, nodding thoughtfully. After break, I assigned David to continue Robert's training while I focused on Maya. We headed to AL-12 to relocate a shipment of industrial sinks. "Marcus," Maya said as we worked, "can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Why do you work here? You seem smart, capable. You could probably get a better job somewhere normal." I considered my answer carefully. "I started working here because I needed money for my brother's rehab. The overtime was good, and I didn't have many other options. But I stayed because the work matters. This facility serves an important purpose beyond just moving inventory. The people here, following these procedures, we're maintaining something essential." "Maintaining what?" Maya asked. "You'll understand eventually," I said. "For now, focus on learning the rules and staying safe." We continued working through the shift, and I was pleased to see Maya following procedures meticulously. She asked good questions, took detailed notes, and showed healthy respect for the rules. Around 1:45 a.m., as we prepared for the mandatory 2 a.m. inventory check, Maya's forklift passed through aisle 47. I was behind her in my own vehicle when I saw it. The gap between aisles 47 and 48 had expanded, and aisle 66 was visible, stretching back into impossible darkness. Maya stopped her forklift, staring at the impossible aisle. I pulled up beside her. "Don't stop," I said quietly. "Keep driving, don't look directly at it." "But that aisle, it wasn't there before," Maya said, her voice tight with tension. "Where did it come from?" "Aisle 66 appears sometimes," I explained. "It's not part of our assigned areas. We acknowledge it exists, we report it during inventory check, and we don't investigate. Now drive." Maya tore her gaze away from the impossible aisle and restarted her forklift. Her hands were shaking slightly on the controls, but she maintained composure. Good. Fear was appropriate, as long as it didn't turn into panic. At the 2 a.m. inventory check, all 4 coordinators gathered at the central computer station. Thomas nodded to me to begin. "Eastern section clear," I reported. "All counts match. Aisle 66 visible between 47 and 48 as of 1:47 a.m. No retrieval needed." David reported next. "Southern section clear. 1 red-wrapped pallet identified in aisle 34, location marked." Emma followed. "Western section has a minor discrepancy. Aisle 29, electrical components. System shows 48 units, physical count shows 46. 2 units missing." Tim completed the reports. "Northern section clear, no issues." Thomas logged everything methodically. "The missing electrical components are probably in 66. I'll send Victor to check. Everyone continue standard operations. Good work tonight." As we dispersed, Maya approached me. "That aisle, number 66, where does it lead?" "Nowhere you want to go," I said. "Items that end up there get retrieved by the recovery team. We don't handle it." "But what is it?" she pressed. "How can an aisle just appear and disappear?" "I can show you something that might help you understand," I offered. "But you have to promise not to discuss it with anyone outside the facility." Maya nodded seriously. "I promise." I led her to Section Z. The door was unlocked, which meant Victor approved of bringing new coordinators here when necessary. We stepped into the chamber with its light-absorbing walls and the crystalline pillar pulsing at its center. Maya's eyes widened. "What is that?" "The source," I said. "This warehouse was built around a weak point, a place where the barriers between different spaces are thin. Everything we do here, all the procedures and protocols, they help maintain those barriers. When rules are broken, the barriers weaken and things slip through from other places." "Things like aisle 66? Maya asked, moving closer to the pillar. "Yes, and the shadows, the whispers, the figures in blue uniforms, they're all manifestations of what happens when boundaries break down. The procedures create patterns that reinforce stability." Maya stared at the crystalline structure, her expression a mix of fear and fascination. "This is incredible. Terrifying, but incredible." "It's why the work matters," I said. "We're not just moving inventory, we're gatekeepers. And if we fail, if too many rules get broken?" I thought about what Victor had implied. Then larger things might cross over, things that couldn't be easily contained. Maya turned to face me. "I understand now. I'll follow every procedure exactly. I won't let the boundaries fail." "Good," I said. "Let's get back to work." The rest of the shift proceeded smoothly. Both Robert and Maya proved to be capable trainees, though Robert still seemed somewhat skeptical about the more unusual aspects of the warehouse. That would change with time and experience. Over the following months, I settled into my role as assistant supervisor. I trained new coordinators, ensured procedures were followed, and helped Thomas manage the swing shift operations. Emma became my unofficial partner in training. her scientific background helping her explain the procedures in ways that resonated with skeptical newcomers. Danny thrived in his recovery, finding work as a peer counselor at a different rehab facility. We had dinner together weekly, and while I couldn't tell him everything about my job, he could see that it gave me purpose beyond just a paycheck. In June, Thomas called me into his office. "Management wants to transfer me to the new facility opening in Portland," he said. "Same kind of operation, built on another weak point. They need experienced supervisors to set up protocols." "Are you taking it?" I asked. "Yes," Thomas said. "But that means this facility needs a new shift supervisor. I recommended you." I was surprised. "Me? I've only been assistant supervisor for 4 months." "But you understand the work," Thomas said. "Not just the procedures, but why they matter. You're good at training new people, and more importantly, you have Victor's trust. That counts for a lot." I thought about the responsibility. What would it involve? Managing the entire swing shift, coordinating with day and graveyard crews, handling incidents, training supervisors for other facilities eventually. Significant pay increase, but also significant pressure. "Can I think about it?" I asked. "Take a week," Thomas said. "But honestly, Marcus, I think you're the right person for this." That night, after the shift ended, I found Emma in the parking lot. "Thomas is leaving," I told her. "They want me to take over as shift supervisor." Emma's face lit up. "That's amazing. Are you going to accept?" "I don't know," I admitted. "It's a lot of responsibility. If I mess up, people could get hurt, the boundaries could fail." "Marcus, you've been keeping people safe since you started here," Emma said. "You understand the procedures better than anyone except Thomas and Victor. You should take the job." "What about you?" I asked. "Still planning to stay?" "Definitely," she said. "Actually, Thomas suggested I apply for assistant supervisor once you move up. I'd be helping train the next generation of coordinators." I smiled. "We'd make a good team." "We already do," Emma said. "So take the promotion. This place needs leaders who understand what we're really doing here." A week later, I accepted the position. Thomas spent the next month training me on supervisor duties: budget management, scheduling, incident reporting, coordination with other shifts and facilities. He also introduced me to the wider network of people managing similar sites across the country. "There are 14 facilities like this in the U.S., Thomas explained, all built on weak points, all using similar procedures to maintain boundaries. We share information, coordinate responses to major incidents, support each other." "How many people know what we're really doing?" I asked. "More than you'd think, fewer than there should be," Thomas said. "But we're training more supervisors, expanding the network. The weak points are becoming more active, requiring more careful management." "Why are they becoming more active?" Thomas shrugged. "No one knows for sure. Maybe it's cyclical. Maybe human activity is affecting them somehow. What matters is we adapt and maintain the barriers." On Thomas's last night, we gathered in the break room after shift. All the coordinators, Janet from the front office, even Victor appeared. We shared coffee and stories, acknowledging Thomas's years of service. "This facility runs smoothly because of all of you," Thomas said. "You follow procedures, you watch out for each other, you maintain the patterns that keep reality stable. Marcus will be an excellent supervisor. Give him the same respect and cooperation you've given me." Everyone nodded or murmured agreement. When the gathering broke up, Victor approached me. "Supervisor," he said simply. "You'll do well." "I hope so," I said. Victor, can I ask you something?" He waited. "What are you, exactly? Are you human?" Victor considered the question. I was, once. Now I'm something that exists between spaces. I maintain boundaries from the inside. You and your coordinators maintain them from the outside. We work together. Will you stay here, at this facility? As long as it's needed, Victor said. As long as there are people like you who understand the work. He left without another word, disappearing into the warehouse shadows. My first night as shift supervisor was both familiar and strange. Same warehouse, same procedures, but now I was responsible for everything. Emma, newly promoted to assistant supervisor, helped me navigate the new responsibilities. You've got this, she assured me during our first inventory check. Just stay calm, follow protocols, trust your training. The shift proceeded without major incidents. 2 minor discrepancies were reported and logged. Aisle 66 appeared briefly around 3 a.m., but contained no items requiring retrieval. By 6 a.m., when the day crew arrived, I felt confident I could handle the job. Weeks turned into months. I trained new coordinators, managed schedules, handled the inevitable incidents that occurred when boundaries weakened. Emma proved to be an invaluable partner, her analytical mind helping develop more efficient training protocols. Danny visited the warehouse one evening to pick me up when my car was in the shop. He waited in the parking lot, and when I emerged at shift end, he looked thoughtful. There's something different about that place, he said as we drove. I sat out there for an hour, and the building just felt wrong somehow, like it shouldn't exist. It's just a warehouse, I said carefully. Marcus, I'm not stupid, Danny said. I know you can't tell me everything about your job, but whatever you're doing in there, it's more than just moving boxes. I can see it in how you talk about the work. Just promise me you're being safe. I promise, I said. The procedures keep us safe. That's what they're for. Danny nodded, satisfied. Okay, I trust you. In September, we had our first major incident since I'd become supervisor. A new day shift coordinator named Eric Moss had repeatedly violated procedures despite warnings. He'd left odd-numbered pallet stacks, ignored discrepancies, and worst of all, had made prolonged eye contact with one of the long shadows. The shadow had followed him. When swing shift arrived that evening, we found Eric sitting on the floor in aisle 19, unresponsive but conscious. His eyes were wide open, staring at nothing. Behind him, a shadow stretched 15 feet long, detached from any visible source. Everyone stay back, I ordered immediately. Emma, call emergency services. Tell them we have an unresponsive worker. Everyone else, standard retreat protocol. I found Victor in section Z. We have a shadow attachment in aisle 19, day shift coordinator, repeated rule violations. Victor nodded grimly. I'll handle it. Keep your people clear. The paramedics arrived 20 minutes later. By then, Victor had done something to the shadow. It was gone, and Eric was responsive enough to be transported. But his eyes had that empty quality I'd seen before, the same look James had after opening the red-wrapped pallet. I filed a detailed incident report, documenting all of Eric's rule violations and the consequences. Management terminated his employment, though he'd likely never work anywhere again. The incident served as a stark reminder to all coordinators about why procedures mattered. A year passed, then 2. The Riverside Distribution Center continued operations smoothly under my supervision. We had the lowest incident rate of any facility in the network. New coordinators were trained thoroughly, understanding not just the rules, but the reasons behind them. Danny celebrated 3 years of sobriety. He'd been promoted to clinical director at his rehab facility. We remained close, having dinner every week without fail. Emma paid off her student loans and enrolled in a graduate program. studying anomalous phenomena and boundary theory at a private research institution that understood what she'd experienced. She continued working swing shift at the warehouse while pursuing her degree. In my third year as supervisor, management approached me about training supervisors for new facilities. The network was expanding, opening locations in cities across the country where weak points had been identified. "We need experienced people who understand the work," the regional director explained during a video conference. "You've built an exceptional program at Riverside. We want you to share that expertise." "What would it involve?" I asked. "Travel to new facilities during their first months of operation. Train their supervisory staff, help establish protocols, ensure proper procedures are implemented. You'd still be based at Riverside, but you'd spend maybe 1 week per month at other sites." I discussed it with Emma. "It's a good opportunity," she said. "And honestly, these new facilities need someone who really understands boundary maintenance. I can manage Riverside while you're traveling." "You sure?" I asked. "Absolutely," she said. "I've been your assistant for 3 years. I know these procedures as well as you do. Besides, it's only 1 week per month. We can handle that." I accepted the position. Over the next year, I traveled to facilities in Chicago, Denver, Atlanta, and Seattle. Each location had its own unique characteristics, different manifestations, different patterns, but the fundamental procedures remained consistent. Even numbers, proper timing, careful attention to detail. These principles worked everywhere. At each facility, I met coordinators like I'd once been, people working nights for better pay, people with obligations and dreams that required steady income. I trained them in the procedures, showed them the weak points that their facilities were built around, helped them understand they were gatekeepers maintaining reality itself. Now, 5 years after I first started at Riverside Distribution Center, I find myself preparing to train another new coordinator. Her name is Rachel Davis, and she's waiting in Janet's office, nervous but determined. She needs this job, student loans, just like Emma had. She'll follow the same path I did: skepticism, gradual acceptance, eventual understanding. I'll teach her the rules. Stack pallets in even numbers. Avoid shadows longer than 10 feet. Exit immediately if equipment stalls. Ignore whispers. Report discrepancies. Stay away from blue uniforms after hours. Never open red-wrapped pallets. I'll show her the warehouse floor, the endless aisles, the boundaries that need constant maintenance. Eventually, I'll take her to Section Z and show her the crystalline pillar. Help her understand what we're really protecting. And she'll learn, as I did, that some jobs are more than just paychecks. That sometimes keeping reality stable is worth the night shifts and the strange manifestations and the procedures that defy explanation. The warehouse will be here tomorrow night, and the night after, and for years to come. New coordinators will arrive, learn the rules, and become part of the network of gatekeepers maintaining boundaries between worlds. Some will move on eventually, returning to normal work. Others, like me, will stay because the work matters in ways most people never imagine. I check my watch. 5:45 p.m. 15 minutes until shift starts. Time to meet Rachel and begin her training. I pull into the Riverside Distribution Center parking lot, the massive warehouse looming against the darkening sky. A silver Toyota is parked near the employee entrance, engine still ticking as it cools. The new trainee has arrived early. That's a good sign, I hope. And that's how it ended, or so we assume for now, as those warehouse shadows linger. If this tale kept you on edge, like and share it with a friend who dares to listen, then subscribe for more eerie nights like this one. Thanks for unwinding with me. Sleep tight if you can. And remember, follow the rules. Always.